Hello, everybody. This is Dushan from How to Rhino, and today I would like to present a special guest. It's a friend of mine, Lazar Djuric, and he will be joining How to Rhino team. And I've been communicating with you guys via social media channels and via my email, and we discussed a lot of things there, and we have a lot of things in common as architects, and a lot of times we have the same problems, the same challenges. So the problem that we have is that our voices are not heard enough, and there is no open discussion about this. So I've come up with the idea to create How to Rhino podcast, which will focus on answering these problems. And the idea behind the podcast is that we'll be having guests who are young architects, and we will be sharing their life journeys, their life experiences, how they started architecture, how they started their careers, what was their path like, and how was this journey for them. So that's something that I think a lot of people would find interesting. And if you think that this idea is viable, please let us know in the comment section below, so that we know that we tailor this content just for you. So today we have a special guest, as I said, Lazar Djuric. He is a friend of mine, and we graduated together in 2014 from Faculty of Architecture in Belgrade. And Lazar has a very interesting journey, and today we're going to discuss a little bit about his path and how he started. And of course, his specialty is parametric modeling with Grasshopper. We're going to touch upon that and then expand on Lazar's career later on. So let's see what was Lazar's path and how it all started for him.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to say thank you, Dushan, for inviting me to be part of How to Rhino project. And also thank you for having me in your first podcast episode, How to Rhino. I think it's a great idea where the young architects will share their experience or their journey in architecture. And that way, I think it will open eyes to young architects and the students of architecture, what their role could be in the future in the industry.
Yeah, I agree, because there's a lot of architects who graduated, but not everybody went in architecture later on, because we have a lot of friends who are actually in different design fields, and they're equally successful. So it would be interesting to share these different career paths as architects, because our architectural knowledge actually gives us the ability to also explore different design areas and design fields. So that's an interesting fact, and a lot of people asked on How to Rhino community, like, what were some other options we have. So
that's what I mentioned.
I hope that we would explore these options here. Okay, Lazar, so let's start from the beginning. How did you first heard about architecture in architectural school, and how did you decide to enroll in architectural school?
There are many people who knew they were going to study architecture from the early age, but honestly, I wasn't one of them. I decided to study architecture 1 year before the entrance exam, when I was in high school. They said that.
Yeah.
Because I was really into math, but in the same time I was interested in design field, and architecture is somehow the mixture of these two. And for me, the architecture was a logical choice.
But you didn't have anybody who suggested this for you. Like, how did you discover? Did you did a friend just suggested you, or a parent?
No. I came up with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So let's say about first 2 years of architectural school, like first 2 years. We all know that it's completely different from what you imagine it would be. Was the same experience for you? Like, did it fulfill your expectations, or was it something completely different?
Okay. I had few friends who were studying architecture in the time when I got in, and they try to acknowledge me what is like being an architecture student. But in reality, it was totally different.
Story, yeah,
different completely. I was lost in the beginning. I think because of many different things. I'm coming from the science-oriented high school, where I used to have, for example, in math and any related subject, where you have like one approach and 100% correct answer.
That is the answer,
yeah. But in architecture and design, as you know, it's not like that. Like it's more
many
like
different options,
subjectively,
many different solutions.
And it's like.
All right, so yeah, you mentioned science-oriented background, and I come actually from the similar high school, which was like general high school, and I remember that we had friends there who were much more knowledgeable on some of the subjects than us, because they came from the technical background. So did you ever feel like you were, let's say, inferior to them in some cases, or was it not that for you?
Yeah, definitely. Especially on the subjects which they had been studying for 4 years in the high school, like construction and something
technical
like that.
Drawings,
with the technical drawings, and many times I felt inferior to them, and in the initial few weeks. I started reconsidering my decision about being
really?
I was that much lost.
Okay. Yeah. I remember also that the problem was that the teachers who were giving these technical classes already expected us to know some things, because a lot of people in our class already knew this because they were from technical background. So that was a little bit like, let's say, not fair for us, because we didn't have this specialty of having this technical knowledge. But on the other side, we were much more open to, creative ideas and having different, advantages over them in some other areas. Because our school was not so much technical, it was more like, let's say, conceptual, so to say.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is not to be terrified with all these unfamiliar and new things. It's really important to believe in yourself, keep working, and good results will be there.
Yeah, for sure. But I also remember when you mentioned this, I had a friend who told me about architecture in advance before I enrolled, and his story was completely like, it's nice, it's easy, like you don't need to worry about anything, just go there, you'll rock it, like it's gonna be a great experience. And when it arrived, it was like completely different story. And I remember then the next year, somebody who asked me the same question, I told him the real thing. I told him the real thing. Like, guy, this is what you need to know. Like, this is how it is. So he was much more prepared in advance than I was. But yeah, I agree with you that if you persevere, if you just go all in, like you will get on the other end. Okay, so we all know that architecture students and architects are constantly overwhelmed with deadlines, with constant work. We're nonstop in front of the monitors. So was that experience in school the same with you? Like, did you have the same kind of, let's say, pressure?
Before answering to that question, I want to say that our school system is based on the Bologna Declaration. For all of you who don't know, students collecting the points during the whole year, and then at the end, based on the points, how many they collected, grades are defined. So that kind of system pushes you to work during the whole year, and makes you feel being under the pressure. And I was struggling with that in the beginning, but later on I used to it. And to answer to your question, yeah, definitely I had issues with like deadlines every week. With like 1 week is some visual
design,
visual design subject, one deadline, another deadline is
we
something
had,
about the construction.
I remember we had a couple of exams in the same day. And that was also something that was
normal.
It was a normal thing. Then I also remember we were when we were doing these group projects, we oftentimes slept at one person's house, and we did all the work there. Like this table was with computers, and there was 4 of us all doing the same thing. And I remember that it was a nice time, but when I now think about it, it was a struggle because we didn't sleep, we didn't sleep. I remember that our friend of ours, Bogdan, he told us a story when he fell asleep when he was in the transportation, and he was holding to the pole on, and then he just fell asleep standing. And that's how much we were exhausted. But
the struggle was real.
It's definitely a thing to address. But today, I don't think it's that much. In the professional life, I don't think that's too much.
Yeah,
it's less. I think it's less than
it was hardcore.
Architectural school. But again, it depends on the place where you work.
Yeah, and one more thing, many architecture school don't provide any training for learning software packages. But also in the same time they expect from you to know, and like in the first year we should have know AutoCAD, Photoshop.
Yeah.
So basically,
the more you knew, the better.
Yeah. And basically, beside studying, drawing, making model in your free time, you need to
learn the software
if you want to stay competitive with the other students.
Yeah. And that wasn't easy to do because you just don't have time.
Yeah.
Simply don't have time. You need to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think still today that is the struggle for a lot of people, because let's just talk about being competitive. You mentioned that. And we all know that today if you want to get a good job, you need to know like 150 software packages, so that they say, okay, now you can work for us because we can use you. So and of course, if you want to apply, you need to have at least 5 years of experience or 10 years of experience, even though you just came out with the architectural school.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you
need to know everything. Yeah. So that was one thing that I think still today is present, and nobody's talking about it. All right, so we did a couple of competitions together, design competitions. We did a couple of them in faculty and a couple of them later on. I remember the one that we did, winery competition, and I remember it was 4 of us in the team, and you came up with this idea to create the terrain in like some small section cuts, and you did this in Grasshopper and Rhino, and I remember that saved us so much time, because we wanted to do it manually, and then we realized how effective that is. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how did you first encounter Rhino and Grasshopper? How did you get familiar with it?
Yeah, I remember that competition. I think we even got honorable mention from that project, which boosted up our confidence for the following project. I used, as you said, I think it was section tools, and I add numbering. So later on, we
knew exactly which piece goes where. Yeah.
To go back to your question, one of my friends told me about the Rhino and how it's efficient and user friendly. Like, if you know AutoCAD, it will be easier transition to 3D program, because Rhino has few similar commands.
You just type.
Also, you have a command line, and they're like,
you just type the commands in.
And there is like a move, copy, trim, offset.
A lot of similar ones.
Yeah, And as I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, I really was into math. And when I heard what is Grasshopper all about, that it's part of Rhino, I was interested in to start learning it. And in the same time, there was studio in the faculty where it was desirable to work in Rhino and Grasshopper. And then I applied for it and started learning.
Yeah, I think that's important because it's a different story when you have the project and when you have the deadline and when you need to finish it, instead of just, having the free time to work on it. And it's not the same efficiency, I would say.
Yeah, no,
So I remember in the first year we had this class called mathematics in architecture, but it wasn't like the real mathematics. It was more like some geometrical shapes that we created in some programs. Like it was not really real math. It was more like visual math, let's say. And I remember that at that time we were introduced to Grasshopper. And that was in 2009, I think.
Yeah.
And I know there was a couple of friends of ours, Koch and Varga. They were very, very good at it. For me, it was like complete, unknown. I tried to understand it, but I couldn't understand it at the time. So I remember that you actually weren't with us in that class.
No.
You started learning it afterwards,
yeah,
right?
2 years after that.
2 years after that, yeah. So that's interesting because everybody has their own initial start.
Yeah, for me it was quite helpful being on that studio because all other students were working in Rhino.
Cool.
So if I face some obstacles, I could ask them, or I could ask assistant teachers, or I could search online on few forums, like you ask question or you search for the
Google
question.
it, yeah.
And probably there was somebody who faced the same problem as I did.
Yeah. I think that's one of the good ways to actually learn, because when you have specific problem and when you find a solution yourself, the next time you encounter the same problem, then you would know, because it would stick to your memory, and then you would be able to better get that knowledge. All right, so tell us what happened later when you graduated, when you finished. What was that process of applying for new jobs, internships for you? I remember that the first thing that we applied for was this office in Poland, and we got there together. So tell us a little bit about that experience and how was that process for you?
After graduation, I spent some time redoing drawings from the school. And even for some of them, I made a new 3D model and renderings. I spent like a couple of months redoing this, which I don't recommend.
Yeah. You're a perfectionist, I know. So.
Yeah. And I wanted to have the same graphic style for all projects in order to have competitive portfolio and to get... in hope to get a job or from the office, which I really wanted to work.
Yeah. So how was that process for you when you started creating? Like, did you decide, okay, I need to redo all of my projects? Did you decide to put all of your projects, or you just wanted to put selected amount of projects in your portfolio?
I put selected amount of projects. The project which I really liked, I think maybe half of the project from the studies. So when I finished the portfolio and starting with the application to send to the offices.
What was the first, like, how did you find the offices? Like, how did you find where to send portfolios?
I wanted to try. I wanted to try to work in some international office, and I started searching for the job application on the few websites, and I chose the international office which I really like, and I would like to work there. And I went to their website, and
Took the
apply for a
email,
job.
applied
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And was that time consuming for you, like applying for these jobs? Like, was that something that you did, let's say, like for 2 weeks, or was it like one day, or how?
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to say when I started sending the application, I hit a roadblock. Why? Because almost like all offices, all employers, as you said, expect you to have 2 or 3 years experience.
Plus experience.
Yeah. So, and the only way to gain that experience is to work as an intern.
Yeah.
Then I was focused on sending application for an internship.
Yeah.
And then I was lucky to have you, my girlfriend Sofia, Amayu, to have you in that office where I was accepted. Yeah. It was quite funny to have like a crew from Serbia in the Polish office.
Yeah. It was office KAMJZ. I remember that we learned a lot there. I learned the most there, I would say, from all of my experiences, because we were completely fresh. We didn't know how the office works, and we were thrown in. Okay, now is the time to do the design competition, and we did only design competitions there, I remember.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned Rhino the most, from you, actually, because that was the time when we had to finish something and we didn't know how. Then we Googled together, or somebody knew, and then we asked, and then I remember I asked you a lot of questions, and you were sitting next to me, so it was like convenient for me to ask you questions.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah, we were lucky that the Rhino was the main software in the office, and all guys work in Rhino.
Yeah.
And just to mention the structure of that office, as you said, it was KAMJZ, based in Warsaw in Poland.
Yeah.
And it was full of international interns, beside 2 Polish colleagues who were like our team leaders, and who were the main link between the interns and the boss. As you said, both of us improved a lot our skills in Rhino. And in that period, I still was in the process of learning Grasshopper. And I remember I wanted to make some time saver definitions, which in real life, like, I wasted a lot of time, which our boss didn't like it so much,
of course.
because
it was all about efficiency.
Yeah, it was all about efficiency
and getting things done.
Yeah. And once he came to me and said, "Lazar, come on, like, leave that Grasshopper and finish that in Rhino in 5 minutes." But later on, I want to mention that later on, one of the definition I made in Grasshopper we use for our main design proposal.
Okay. So it
wasn't like totally
wasted
time wasting.
Yeah. Cool. I remember at that time we ordered this book from Arthur Tedeschi, Algorithmic Designs, and that's when I think we both got interested in Grasshopper, but you got more interested than me, because I remember we were discussing some things, like things that we saw in nature, in like we were saying, okay, how to design this lamp, how to design this thing in the city, and then we created the problems for ourselves, design problems that then we would work on and try to find a solution in Grasshopper. So I think that's also an interesting way to learn it, to have some small design tasks that you would give to yourself as like a homework, let's say, and then you try to do it on your own, because that way you practice the skill of, okay, what can go with which algorithm, how to connect different things. And
that's, I think, the best for me was the best way of learning. Like, every time I face a new issue, and then I search online and I remember how to do it next time. And next time I found a new problem and I solve it also when I Google it. And every time I was facing a new problems, and I was learning a new things on that way.
Yeah.
I would like to mention one cool thing about the KAMJZ. It's a workflow, which I haven't seen before nor after that. Basically, we had big whiteboards lean along the walls, and which contain all project phases for like all projects and all important informations. So when we finish, for example, when we finish research, we put like all important information. Later on, when we start doing design proposals, we set the fixed cameras in our
Rhino
scene,
viewport, yeah.
And then like all team members which were doing design scheme, they used the same cameras, and then later we print and put on the whiteboards. So in one column, it's the same camera angles. In the
With
same
different designs.
different design, and in the rows it's like each row it's the one design scheme.
Yeah,
so when it's located like that on the whiteboards, it's clear to define why one of the proposals, why one design is better to the other one.
Yeah, I like the discussion also, because we were discussing and everybody was presenting their own ideas, and then we had a discussion on why this one is better and why this one is better, and what is like the best possible solution out of all of these design proposals. And I think that's because we are visual, like architects are very visual. So if you have everything at one place, it's much better to connect the dots and to be able to find the right solution.
Even though we worked there for more than 12 hours and during the weekends, in the period of deadlines, not all the time, I'm still feeling grateful for having that experience in that office.
Me too. It was a big, let's say, school for us. But now when you mentioned the whiteboards, I remember one thing, because you were sitting next to me and you were not so good with English at that time, and I remember boss was telling you, Lazar, please do the staple these papers and bring them to me. And you went outside and you started to put all of these papers on the board. And I was looking at you like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was confused. I didn't hear him very well, but I wasn't sure that he said pin them. I heard another word, but I thought it's a synonym for the pin.
Yeah, that's a school thing. So we had a lot of great time there.
Yeah, we met really cool people there, and some of them we're still in touch today.
Exactly. So what was your next step? Or what was your next step?
Yeah, during the last month of the internship in Poland, I got a positive reply from the BLAU, a small office based in Barcelona. We were doing the international competitions, and like almost all of the team members were outside of Spain, except one of the partners. He was from Barcelona. And
how big was that office?
I think 5-6 people. When I came, there were I think 4, and after that 3 new interns came.
Was it similar kind of office in terms of the design phases?
Yeah, it was very similar, very similar experience, and for me it was easy to adapt to their workflow. It wasn't organized very well, but it was more chill and relaxed working atmosphere. And I remember the office was located in a small street next to La Rambla, the main pedestrian street in Barcelona. And I remember after the lunch, we used to go out and sit on these like adorable Barcelona public squares and chill outside.
Barcelona is a really special city.
Yeah.
It has a very cool architecture. So you stayed there for like, what was it, 3 months? Or?
Yeah, I stayed there for 3 months because it was the maximum period which you can spend in EU,
European Union,
without having visa if
yeah.
you're not part of the EU. I mean, if your country is not part of the EU.
So after that, you came back to Serbia, and what was your next step?
After coming back to Serbia, I felt I had enough experience to apply for a job, for a position as a junior architect. And this time the internship wasn't option. And I got quite good offer from the office in Shenzhen, in China. And by like set of circumstances, one of our mutual friend, Maria, who was working in Shenzhen, was on vacation in Serbia.
Okay. So you met?
Yeah, I met her just to get informed what it's like working there. And I remember she mentioned about the job offer she got, but she wanted to refer to somebody else. And when I heard the job location, it's in Maldives.
Cool.
You
decided already.
I decided like bye China. I want to
Maldives.
focus on sending to apply there. And after 1 month, I was there.
So she referred you to this office.
Yeah.
Then you got in contact with them, and then they said,
I got interviewed there, and they said okay. And I got accepted, and as I said, 1 month after I arrived.
So this is a total, let's say, different country, different continent, different culture. Like, how was all that like for you? Because you were still, exploring architecture. You're still not sure, like, if this is, the right office for you. Or you wanted the location, but you were not sure about the office, right? So
yeah, I didn't know anything about the office.
So, but you accepted it, and then tell us a little bit about that experience. Like, how was that in a different culture, in a different office? I think you did actually different kind of projects there than before.
I accepted because it sounds very challenging for me. Type of work was different than my previous experience, because this time I was involved in one big project for the island resort development. It's a resort for 5 stars, and my task there was to design houses for the staff, because the rest of the project was already done by the Park and Associate, the big office from Singapore. I've been working alongside civil engineers, and I coordinated with the contractors.
You were in the field, right? You were more on the field than like you at the construction site.
Both of that. I had to ensure that all aspects of the projects are adequately addressed.
And okay, so tell us a little bit about life there in Maldives. Like, was it all like on the pictures, so pretty, a lot of beaches and things like this, or?
Yeah, many people ask me that question, and they're curious what it's like living there and working there. And comparing to Europe, where I used to have outside activities during the day, meeting friends, having drinks with them, go to some parties, meeting my family. I didn't have that in Maldives, and I could say the city wasn't compatible to my lifestyle.
I see. Yeah. Okay.
Many people don't know that Maldives is a Muslim country. So if you want, where the alcohol is strictly forbidden. Yeah. So if you want to grab a beer, you need to go.
It's not possible almost.
Yeah, you need to go to the airport.
Yeah. Understand. So it's a bit of a problem for us. But how was this experience for you when you finished? Like, you finished this, And let's say that you were there for how long?
I've been there for 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And then you switched back to Serbia again, or what was the next stop for you?
When the project
you were there during the project,
yeah,
right?
when it was finished, I came back to Serbia. But I want to mention that I had really good time there. Like
no matter if you're not compatible so much with the city.
Yeah. Like I visited many remote islands, which I never imagined I would go there. And I like people there are one of the most humble human beings I ever met. So it was like
it was more like a cultural experience. Rich cultural experience.
Yeah, that was my first time visiting Asia. And you asked me
about
what was the next what was the next step. When I came back to Serbia, that time I was sure I have enough experience for to find a good job in Europe. I was focused just sending application in Europe, and that was the moment when I hit another roadblock. This time it was bigger than
the previous
one. Why? Like, even though I had more than 10 interviews, like 90% of them ended up in a way, okay, you're a good candidate, really like your portfolio, your projects, your skills, but because Serbia is not part of the EU, we are not able to provide you. We're not able to provide the working visa.
That's one of the biggest challenges that people from our country face, and probably from different countries as well, because providing the working visa at the beginning of the career is much more difficult than later on.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. I didn't give up. Like I believe in yourself, and I truly believe that there is an office who will be willing to provide me a working visa.
Yeah.
And then I passed through a couple of rounds of interviews for one of the most known architecture offices in Europe, which I don't want to mention it. And after the final round, I got an email from one of the partners in which was stated that, sorry, we're really sorry for not offering you a job. But it was only because you're from Serbia, you're not part of the EU. And why? Because the threshold of income for the position you applied is
higher than what they can offer.
The threshold of income is much higher for getting visa is much higher than the position you applied for.
I see.
So they couldn't do so much about that.
Yeah.
That's the law in that country. And I said, like, okay.
Yeah, it's enough.
It's enough. No. After that experience, I said, okay, probably I still didn't have enough experience.
Yeah.
So I was focused on after that sending application.
Did you start rebuilding the portfolio once again, or you just decided, okay, I have good portfolio, which is good enough. Now I'm gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah, I felt no matter how good portfolio it was more about the
where you came from.
My nationality.
So it's not about the quality; it's about this, and
that's how I felt in that moment.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't have good enough portfolio.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I think you had. But yeah, this is the common thing that people from these areas face, and. But we also know that there is people who actually got jobs in European countries, but they are at higher. Let's say they had more years of experience. So when they reach this threshold of being able to afford this salary, which will afford them to get the working visa, then it's possible. But when you're at the beginner's stage, when you have just like 1 to 2 years of experience, then just the salary is not high enough to get you through there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you said okay, it's enough. And what was your next decision?
You know how they say, when one door closes, another opens. And then I refocused on sending application just in China. And I knew that this time I could expect better working conditions than 1 year before. And the best job offer I got from Shenzhen. And Shenzhen, for all of you who don't know, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the world. Like in 1980s, it was like fishing village with 30,000 people, and right now it's has more than 15 million citizens. It's home of the one of the biggest Chinese
tech companies.
Such as Huawei, DJI, Tencent, and so on.
So, but what was the decision behind deciding to go to China? Like, did you why didn't you apply to somewhere else but China?
I felt in China there are like the most work of opportunities
for
architects. Like many different cities were growing so fast, developing, and they needed an architect. And they offer really good conditions.
So you started applying there, and how was that? Like, did you get a response right away, or like?
Yeah, they responded quite quickly. I had another series of interviews, like again more than 10 interviews, and I chose the job offer which I got from Shenzhen.
So you got this one job offer from, like, you got a couple of job offers, and then you decided to go with the best one for you, right?
Yeah, the best one, because one was much better than the rest. Honestly, I thought it's a mistake,
but if you remember correctly, you didn't have for that job. You didn't have
why
interview.
I thought it's a mistake, because I didn't have interview.
They just told you, okay.
I just sent a portfolio, said, okay, this is the working conditions,
and you're admitted if you want.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's interesting, because not a lot of people have that kind of experience. Usually there is interviews.
It was quite weird.
Yeah. And then your girlfriend was also applying there, right? You wanted to go together.
Yeah. She also applied when I got the job offer from Shenzhen. We decided to go to Shenzhen, but she didn't have any job offers from Shenzhen. Then she really focused something just not the whole China, just in Shenzhen. And after maybe 1 month, she also got.
And so, what was the experience in that office? What was the name of the office?
Yeah, the name of the office is Zhubo Design. It's one of the largest architecture company in Shenzhen, with more than 800 employees.
Oh.
They have branches not just in Shenzhen. They also have branches in Beijing, Shanghai, Wuhan, Foshan.
So it's a big office.
Yeah, it's big cities.
Very different than the ones that you worked
again
before.
Another different experience. Like I like working and living in China is one hell of an experience.
It's a different world.
Like totally different. Not just working, just living there.
Yeah. Because the culture is also new. Like, before you met with, like, let's say Muslim culture, and now you went to this Chinese culture, which is also very, very special on its own.
Yeah, from the first day in the office, it was shocking for me.
Tell us about this. Like, I remember you were telling me some stories about weird things in the office that you encounter.
For me it was weird. Probably for them that was totally normal thing. I got in a team where just few of them, I think one team member spoke English.
Okay. So language barrier.
Yeah, language barrier, but I realized that the team leader doesn't speak English.
Oh.
Yeah, and like all all instructions and the tasks. Every time I need to ask one of the colleagues, that one who was speaking English. So every time he was translating, and for me it was quite uncomfortable every time to ask them, okay, can you please translate me? Then on the meeting, everything like the 100% of the meeting was in Chinese, and every time I need to
what was it?
what was he saying, and then I decided to change the team. That was also an option. I asked my boss, can I change the team? I'm feeling not comfortable to work with these colleagues. Like they're really nice guys, but they don't speak English.
Yeah. Couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
Okay, so you transferred the team, and then like what was the environment in that team? Like now you were able to speak English with somebody, right?
Yeah, somehow. It wasn't that fluent, but you
could understand each other.
Yeah. As I worked in a department, which was department of the chief architect, the main architect in the company, who was co-founder as well. And all big profitable projects were coming into that department, and our team was responsible for some of them. And these projects were all type of scales, like from the residential, commercial, some like
big
museum,
scale,
big scale, urban scale. It was as well urban design, all sort of typology and scales.
All right. So one thing that you said is that when you arrived there, you were lucky enough to already have somebody who was from Serbia at the same office, and that helped you a lot, right?
Yeah. When I arrived there, there was my friend Strahinja. He had been working there for 6 months before I came. Yeah. And he helped me a lot to adapt faster to the working condition, to the cultural difference as well. And and like later on we're sharing like similar issues on the work, helping each other. Like
it's very useful to have somebody like this to talk to, because you're in different country, different culture, and they all speak Chinese, and you're speaking Serbian, so it's like this thing when you go to the foreign country, when you meet your own people from your own country, you feel like you're more close than
probably he is the reason why I stayed there for 2 years. Maybe I stayed there not that long. So he was there. Then you said you worked in a lot of these different scale projects. Tell us a little bit about the speed of working in China. I think like all people who were living in China experience China speed. I used to define it as multiplied workload. Divided to compressed work, compressed time required for certain task or some certain job to be done.
So it's double the work, but compressed time, like smaller the time in double. Interesting. We all know about this, that in China it's all about production, and you also mentioned that you had
like that team was 7 people, and in once we had 7 different projects,
big scale projects,
like going on, like big scale, small scale, like.
So the workload is immense.
It's immense. Like every 2, 3, 4 weeks, we were getting new projects or all projects who should have been modified.
I understand. So you mentioned briefly that when you were like in a different culture, let's say this is China, and there's not a lot of white people in China, and we all know about this thing that they look at you a little bit different because there's not a lot of white people there. So tell us a little bit about that. Is it true that they like to take photos with people who are not from China?
You feel probably it's not like 10 years ago, because in the last I don't know, let's say 10 years, many foreigners came to China to live and work, but still sometimes you feel there as a famous person. Like they ask you to take up pictures with them. Sometimes you see some of them that taking photos of you like paparazzi, like in the train, like this. It's quite weird, but you used to it. Like during time.
All right, and tell us a little bit about you said you stayed there for 2 years, so you mentioned there's a lot of work there, a lot of the workload is quite big. So over time, what did you decide to come back? What was the?
But sorry for I just remember about white monkeys there. Where when you mention white people, usually it's China. It's good to have a white person to work in the company,
to represent.
To represent it. It gives some credits to that company. And before, as I said, nowadays not like that, but still they send the white person purposely just to from another field, maybe they're not in the company, just to be in the meeting. And once I went in Qingdao, the city in the north of China, with my team leader to present projects to one of our clients. And when he finished with the presentation, I should add a few things about the projects. Actually, some of the clients asked me to add something.
I see.
And then I presented. And later on, they explained me he wanted just to check, just to be sure if I'm white monkey or no.
So you're like a fake person there, just to make them look better. Cool.
Yeah. One of the benefits working in China is that you can easily afford to yourself traveling to and visit another countries in Asia. During the time I live in China, I visited Japan, Korea, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia. I think I wouldn't have that opportunity if I didn't go there to
everything
that
was
part of the world.
Much closer.
It was closer and cheaper to visit. And I want to mention my girlfriend Sofia, who was like my companion to all this adventure, which I mentioned in this podcast. And without her company and support of her and my family, I'm not sure I would be eager to take all these challenges and to work in all these places. And after 2 years of working and living in China, I started feeling overloaded and I couldn't find motivation anymore. Then after deep consideration, I decided it's a time for a new chapter in my life. So I moved back to Serbia, and I was lucky to get your call to be part of How to Rhino project. And here we are.
Awesome. Okay, so you said briefly that you worked a little bit in Grasshopper in China, but you didn't have the time to fully show your skills there. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and what would, for example, in your opinion, be your advice to people who want to start learning Grasshopper and how to approach it in the first place?
Okay. In China, I was more advanced. I mean, I was not beginner with Grasshopper. and I could I started using Grasshopper whenever I could. So I was using for the landscape design, for the canopy design, for scheme design as well. But most of the time I used for the facade design purpose. When they realized I'm quite proficient in Grasshopper, they always gave me
more and more
that kind of task. They gave me like a facade skin, and I like, Lazar, come on, do something interesting with this facade.
Yeah. Cool.
But for me, it was really enjoyable. When it comes to giving advice for someone who wants to learn Grasshopper, I'm aware that Grasshopper doesst look like other
typical program.
Program. Like it has its own like workflow, different logic, interface. It looks completely different. But I want to encourage them to give a try, no matter how terrifying it looks in the beginning. One really important thing is to have exercises which will follow the
learning curve.
Learning curve, and also the which will follow the probably video tutorials or book, depending on what source, what's their learning source. And if you practice and if you working on the exercises, you can get more confident in yourself, and you will be willing to continue working and continue and to keep learning and improving yourself. Keeping that in mind, how to Rhino, preparing that kind of exercises for the future students. And I think it will be really helpful for them during the learning process.
Yeah, to have exactly those kind of exercises that will slowly, gradually improve the knowledge.
Yeah, so and all these exercises will follow the lessons. Last thing I would like to add is the development of the architecture industry is in strong relationship with development of the science and technology. By that, I mean today we are able to produce more complex geometries and more complex structure than we were before. And using like very good softwares today and very good tools which we have nowadays. And definitely Grasshopper is one of them.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And I think that you'll be a great asset to How to Rhino with your skills and knowledge, and with the exercises and tutorials that you'll be presenting here to our audience. And I want to thank you, first of all, for being the first person here to get interviewed for How to Rhino podcast. And again, I would like to thank you for joining How to Rhino team. And I hope that we create much more, valuable content like this, and also to educate more architects and to get our voices heard out there. So this is the first step. And again, thank you for being part of this.
Thank you once again, Dusan.
Thank you a lot for watching the show until the end. I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Lazar. And if you have any questions for me or Lazar, post them in the comment section below and let us know what you think about the show. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and consider supporting us on Patreon so that we can bring more guests on the show and continue to create high quality Rhino and Grasshopper tutorials for you. Cheers, guys.
We pin them all projects, all project phases. Ti staraješ. Pa nije ti rekao da zakačiš, pa ti rekao ti samo da zakačiš.